Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
What do you want to do with your life? I want to talk.
Well, you have no idea what I've been going through trying to get this podcast done. I actually started it earlier today, and immediately when I started, workmen started hammering away. I'm having some construction done, and it was quiet enough, but of course, the minute I turned on the microphone and the camera started repeated jackhammering. I didn't know they had to do that, but apparently they had to do it. So I'm starting again. The workmen are gone for the day. And it's been, my wanting to do a podcast. My desire to do a podcast is strong. I love the format. I've long advocated personalities on radio, and radio has tried to squash personality in spite of the fact of the success of a Howard Stern and a Rush Limbaugh. Okay, they have over the years figured that the best way that they could fix the problem with terrestrial radio is they could program their way out of it. And they kept shutting up the air personalities, with the exceptions of the Howards and the talk radio people, which I don't know why this wasn't a clue. And they would, so we could program, we'll refine the program. And why they thought that they could outprogram somebody's iPod or personal playlist or Pandora or Spotify is beyond me. Yet they've continued to, over the years, terrestrial radio literally killed itself. And I've been screaming this from the mountaintops for decades. And now the podcast has proven what I've been saying. Not that anybody's listening. I'm screaming it. Nobody's listening. But the podcast is proof that people want personality. It's the one thing that their iPod can't play. Well, we can play podcasts, but you can't program personality. And now terrestrial radio is in the gutter. It's nothing compared to what it was in its heyday. They actually convinced people it was better to pay for a subscription for Sirius than it was to get free content. Mind-blowing. But the podcast, personality. I like to think that I've got one. And, so the podcast calls to me. I did talk radio for a number of years, loved it. So I love the format. That said, I've struggled with the commitment of being able to keep up the podcasts with all the other things that I do. And I'm always working on new ideas and screenplays, and I did a musical for a couple of holiday seasons, and touring and new albums and shows. So it really fights against it. And there are people like Jamie Josta. God love Jamie Josta. Great podcast, by the way. You should check out the Josta. I think it's called the Josta Show, if you haven't. Just a great host. But he tours a lot. But he has no problem doing interviews all day and then performing at night. The strain on my throat is such, and you say, how can you strain? You sing. Well, everybody's voice is different. There are people who sing effortlessly, and other people like myself who have to deal with wear and tear on the throat. I sing very loud. I push a lot of air. I'm going to mute this thing so we don't have to hear that. There we go. And I push a lot of air, as they say in the business, and I really put a strain on my throat. I mean, look at this thing. Look at this thing. The veins. I mean, it's insane. So I can't talk all afternoon on a show day and then perform at night. Or, and Jamie Josta will do that. So will Chris Jericho, another great podcast. And he's a singer too. And, on a show day, he interviewed with me and then he was going to go perform later. And God bless him. So I've got that conflict because especially some of these festivals, I could access some interesting interviews. I can't strain the voice. So, and then, I travel a lot. I don't live in the States. I'm here in Belize right now in the pink room, the peach room, if you will. And, and so there's trust me, there's nobody you'd be interested in talking to down here in Belize. So now my show has become just me having a conversation with you guys. Now, for those of you screaming, saying it's not a conversation, D, it's an oration, or a diatribe, or some word to describe a monologue, just me talking at you. I view them as conversations very much so because I hear your voices in my head. Okay, no, I'm not out of it. I just want to say that I hear. I've been using social media as a sounding board for what I'll talk about each week. Now, somebody emailed and said, "Yeah, D, could you? We don't do social media, so it's not fair to us." But you don't understand. Social media reflects the zeitgeist. It reflects the public consciousness. At least, when it's on Twitter and my followers, it's what they're talking about, what they're interested in talking about. So even if you were, by the way, the workers are still here. And I appreciate the respect that it's getting dark out and they're still doing their job. At the same time, if I ever wanted them to go home early, today was the day. I just want to do this I want to do my podcast. Okay. But it reflects what my audience is thinking about. So even if you're not on social media, not active, I think that the things that are being reflected in what's being discussed online will spill over. And if you were on social media, especially since you're a listener and a follower, you would find it interesting. So I view it as conversations because I read. I don't do Facebook. Just so if you don't know that, that's my people post on there. But Twitter is all me. Instagram, I do some of it. But Twitter, I'm reading all the comments. So I'm hearing your voices. So when I'm having this conversation, and today it's going to be predominantly about The Dirt and the Motley Crue movie, I've seen what you're saying about it. I've heard your side of the conversation. Now I am answering, rebutting. It's not necessarily a rebuttal, but I'm having my side of the conversation. So I view it as a conversation for sure. And I just want to take a moment, if I could, to ask that if you're checking out my podcast regularly, would you please consider subscribing to it? I believe it's like $7 a month. And it gives you, access. You get early access to the podcast. When I have bonus footage, there's bonus footage there. That's for the viewers. You get, and also I think you have access to the other Gas Digital Media podcasts. I don't know exactly how it works, but I do know it's relatively inexpensive. And if you're enjoying it, understand that if I can't prove this, if this business model doesn't work, that people aren't willing to subscribe, they're only willing to listen for free, which I appreciate, and I know a lot of people are right now. But if you're enjoying it and you want to support it, you want to keep it going on, I believe it's $7 a month, and that's not a lot. And it would, and it also helps me get, when people see I have subscribers, then I get advertisers, and I know, great advertisers, but I won't take away from the content of the show if I get some advertisers, but it just proves the value of the show and helps the show continue on. Okay. It's got to be worth it to Gas Digital Media, and that's what makes it worth it. Continuing to put the show out there. So consider that Gas Digital Media. It must be a link when you go to Apple, however you're listening to this thing. There must be a way. You're a smart bunch of people. Please just subscribe and become a part of this thing. I'd really appreciate it. Okay. So on to the subject at hand. It's funny. You start thinking, judging by the conversation on social media, that you'll be talking about one thing or another, and you wind up talking about something totally different. First of all, I want to just mention that I did a podcast. It was called Clinky Bits, and it was honoring Bernie Torme. I think I talked about more than just Bernie, the late Bernie Torme. And I don't know if you enjoyed it. Bernie was a dear friend, and I needed to do that podcast in his honor. And I was very pleased to hear from his wife, who loved it, and from our bass player, Desperado bass player, Widowmaker bass player, Mark Russell, also played with Bernie before Desperado and Widowmaker, had a long history with Bernie, and he loved it. And, it's funny. While I hope other people enjoyed it and got something out of it, getting those notes from Bernie's wife, Lisa, and from Mark Russell, it said, totally worth it. So glad I did that. I think it was last week that Fighting Words, I think it might have been called, my producer, Brian, he names the shows. I kind of like his names. And I know that part of it was I got into social media, I got into trolls, I got into online bullying and stuff like that, and how I don't understand how people allow themselves to be sucked in, and I talked about what losers these people are, and that got picked up, particularly by Blabbermouth. Who like I said, has been nothing but great to me as far as coverage, accuracy, nothing misleading, totally represent me as it is. But I referred to the people, most of the people, not all the people, but the vast majority who do make comments to the Blabbermouth articles, they're trolls. And I called them losers and whatever. And so that got picked up, and that was, which is so, and I'm like, I look forward to the day that one of these trolls actually comes up to me on the street and says something. I mean, I'm 64 years old, and I'm not the psychopath I once was, but I still got it in me. And my theory on bullies, some of you who've seen me in concert recently have heard my theory on bullies, is, there's always, you gotta hit a superior show of force, with a bully. You can't talk to a bully. You've got to physical force to shut them down. You've got to hit them twice as hard. It's two eyes for an eye. Okay? So you can't be nice. You can't play nicey-nicey. And there's always somebody, I'm a tough guy, but there's always people who are tougher. There's always people. There's always somebody out there who's going to kick your ass. But that's why God invented the car. Because I'm a black belt I've got in car auto. Now I'm I'm gonna find a name for it. I've been trying to think of a good name for it, but basically I got a black belt, and it wraps around my H2 Hummer, and then I run you over with my plate steel bumpers. I'm not going to be dominated or subjected to bullshit by assholes. Whatever it takes. Crime of passion. Sorry, Your Honor, I had to run him over. He was an asshole. Dee, I understand totally. You're totally within your rights. So I believe that God invented the automobile for just this purpose. So whatever it takes, I am going to win. So I look forward to the day that, a troll or one of these people online actually come up to me on the street and say something to my face. I really do look forward to it. It'll be an interesting exchange. Let's just say that. Hey guys, are you looking to last longer and go a few extra rounds if you get my drift? Well, get to BlueChew.com. BlueChew.com has the first ever chewable that brings your performance in the bedroom to another level. Check this out. They've got the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. Assuming you've used Viagra or Cialis. And if you haven't, what are you waiting for? Since they're chewable, they'll work faster than a pill, up to twice as fast. And you can take them anytime, day or night, even on a full stomach. And this stuff is cheaper than those other two, so this is a no-brainer. Basically, if you like sex, and who doesn't, you'll like BlueChew.com. Plus, you don't need to go to the doctor's office or spend time waiting in the pharmacy line because Blue Chew ships straight to your door in discreet packaging. Nobody's going to know but you. And here's a great deal for you guys. Visit BlueChew.com and get your first order free when you use promo code TALK. Just pay $5 shipping. That's it. Again, that's BlueChew.com, promo code TALK. Yes, it will be an interesting exchange. So I kind of got lost there just thinking about running over a troll. One of my favorite scenes in any movie of all time is Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Oh my God. Just amazing where they go to the troll's house and they just pull him out of the door and start beating the piss out of him. I mean, that is just so beautiful. I mean, it's just, and look, I'm not a violent person by nature. I just don't like to be bullied or harassed or put upon. I'm just not going to, wait a minute. I'm not going to take it. By golly, there's a catchphrase. I'm not going to take it. Where was I? Oh, so anyway, so that got some interesting coverage and, I'm sure the trolls are losing their shit. And what's really, if a troll trolls in the darkness and in his mother's basement and the person they're attacking doesn't read it, did it make a sound? I know that they're losing their shit because I called them a bunch of losers and what have you. So, and I'm sure they're, finger banging, I call it finger banging. Ooh, they're finger banging their typewriters and I'm not reading it. So I don't know. So it's not making a sound. So bang away. Okay. And I look forward to meeting you one day on the street. It's an interesting thing with me on the street because I'm much bigger than I appear on your computer screen or phone. Even on your big screen TV, I come like, whatever, 70, like 50 inches. I'm much bigger than that. And I'm sure there have been people who have seen me in the distance and came toward me. But all I ever get when they are upon me is, hey, Dee, what's going on? And a handshake. So I'm assuming they all like me, but I'm probably got to assume that in that group, somewhere along the way, in the thousands of people who have approached me on the streets, somewhere in there had to be someone who's going to let me give me a piece of their mind, And I remember one rock star, he shall remain nameless. But, on my radio show, The House of Hair, I tend to rag on people. My last name is Snider. It's an adjective, not a proper noun. I am Snider than you are. It's a word. Snide. Snider. Snidest. I'm Snider. Okay? And that's what I do. I make fun of myself too. I think I'm self-deprecating at this point. And this rock star, who shall remain nameless, sees me from across the room at an event and very boldly goes, Dee, I want to talk to you about something. And I can see he's upset. And he walks across the room toward me. And as he gets closer to me, I get bigger and he gets smaller. It's a weird phenomenon. And he was probably one of those, 5'7", 5'8" regulation, smaller rock stars. And he gets up to me and his head is looking at my chest. And he's like pointing at me. Listen, I wanted to, and now he's like slowing up. He was upset about things I said on House of Hair. And he goes, I want to, and he's pointing and he taps my chest. And he goes, and he stops he's already stopping, but he goes, wow, you're really good shape. Literally says those words to me. And I'm looking down and I go, yeah, man, so what's going on? He goes, and now his whole tone's changed. Like, listen, like stern face, gee, I want to talk to you. Like now he's with me, poking me in the chest, and my chest is poking back. He goes, yeah, he said some things on a House of Hair, and if you could not say those things, it would be really cool. He's like such a sweetie pie, and I'm like, dude, listen, man, I'm sorry. I'm an asshole, I know, but I make fun of everybody. I make fun of myself. If you really listen to the show, you hear, I make fun of no one more than I make fun of myself. So anyway, but it was just the tonal change was just wonderful. And I'm sure that there's people on the street who are the same way. And because, again, I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but I'm bigger than many. So whatever it is, it works for me. So, but then again, I'm waiting for you. So come on up. Come on up, trolls. Come on. Come on. Give me a taste of my bumper. Taste of my plate steel bumpers on my Hummer. Anyway, where was I? This week's show. So The Dirt came out. A lot of conversation about it. And people wanted to know what I thought about it. And I watched it. I had read a good portion of the book. Back when I did morning radio, I was interviewing Nikki. The book came out. That's almost 20 years ago, by the way. I was interviewing Nikki Sixx, and I wanted to be a little bit familiar with the book. And I read several of the front end of the book. And I was pretty mortified. By my standards. And I want to be clear, because this is going to wind up on social media again. Nikki, Tommy, Vince, never met Mick. Would love to. But the three guys, I like them very much. I got no problem with it all. And I've got no problem with their choice, with their lifestyle choices. Little problem with the manslaughter in the car. Drinking and driving is upsetting to me. There was some innocent, besides, Razzle, who got in the car with Vince and was equally wasted, and made the choice to drive with Vince. Vince hit another vehicle and seriously, not critically, seriously injured. I believe one of the girls is a quadriplegic or permanently injured or whatever. So I got a real problem with that. And the 18 days in jail, I got a problem with that. I know he got short time so that he could pay the $2.5 million in restitution to the injured parties. I get that. But, drinking, I thought I muted you. You son of a bitch. Now you're muted. Vince or no Vince, I got a problem with drinking and driving. I got a problem with people hurting innocent people with their bad choices. So, I've had a problem with that over the years. But other than that, the lifestyle choice, the path that those guys took, that is of their choosing. And I went, I have to say, completely opposite of them. By my choosing, we've got the right to choose. Freedom of choice. It's what I believe in, And but I read The Dirt, the first, several chapters and was honestly mortified. I was mortified. Mainly, I'm not a clean freak by any means, but I likes a shower and I likes me, some clean sheets and I likes, a clean house. And I wasn't always that way, but the level of filth as described in the book, and it really didn't come across in the movie, was unparalleled, was just mind-blowing. The dirt, it was the disgusting. And the best part, my favorite part of the book, The Dirt, is the way it was laid out. Each guy, a book was like, written by Neil Strauss, but the guys, they basically, it seemed like they were Neil was interviewing them and they were talking about their situations. So each chapter went from Nicky's version of it, Vince's version, Tommy's, and then Mick's. And it was, for some reason, my nose is itching me. I don't have a Coke problem. Never had, never will. So each guy and each situation, it rotated around. So each situation, you got their perspective on the situation. It was very well done. A unique approach. Mick's chapters were my favorites because Mick would not live with the guys. Mick was 10 years older. They call him the old man, right? Mick was like already past a lot of this craziness that they were in. So he would go to the house, but he wouldn't sleep there. And his observations on it were priceless. And basically how disgusting it was. It was just vile. And I don't think that came across. Maybe when that one woman was squirting at the party, you got some of that. But it was reading the book. Again, not the entire book. I want to be fair there. But the parts I read, I was like, ew, disgusting, using my name in there. So Motley always chose a very different path. And it's a path that most of you rock fans find to be at least, let's say, interesting, compelling. It's the vision of rock and roll that is romanticized and that many people have. The sex, drugs, and rock and roll aspect of it. And sex and drugs, it should be, sex, drugs, drug/alcohol, and rock and roll. It seems to be one of the reasons why people get into rock and roll, the party aspect of it. So Motley, not only did they embrace it, it seemed like they, and this is, okay, I'm going to get crucified on some of this stuff. I'm trying not to be judgmental, but one of the people said, of course you're being judgmental, D. You're being cool about it, but you're judging. We all judge. We are all, always, in every situation. What do they say when the cops are doing it? They call it profiling. We all profile. The police get in trouble for it. It's not fair. Day in and day out, we are all profilers. It's how we survive. Okay? We walk onto an elevator, crowded elevator. Every one of us, male, female, young and old, we size up the situation. We size up. Is there any threat? Is there any potential sexual partner? Is there, am I the biggest? Am I the smallest? Am I, is there all men on here and I'm a woman? Is it, or am I the only dude? We quickly, like our computer brains size up every situation. We walk down the street, we pass people, just like those people approaching me, those trolls who I'm sure are out there, as they're approaching me, their Terminator glasses are saying, what's going to be my greeting to Dee Snider? From afar, hey, asshole, you're a dick. And the closer they get, the bigger I get. And they go, hey, Dee, I'm not too happy with you. And by the time they get to me, hey, Dee, big fan. So they, we're all profiling at all times. To say the cops are fucked up or profiling, we're all profiling every minute of every day. And if you say you aren't, you're a liar. And the same thing goes with judging. Judging is profiling. It's you can mince words. You can say, well, it's not really. When a guy accused me, he says, I said, I'm not being judgmental. He says, you are being judgmental. And yes, I have decided, it wasn't deciding Motley Crue's path wasn't for me. I didn't even know who Motley Crue was when I chose my path. I saw a path from a young age. I wanted to be a rocker. And I saw the drinking and I saw the drug taking, and it wasn't for me. I judged that it wasn't for me and that I didn't want to be that way. I told other people, hey, why are you drinking? Why are you doing drugs? I did not cast my opinion upon them or force my opinion upon them. I hung out with partiers. All my friends, musician friends, growing up, they were all getting high and drinking and partying. I was the only straight one. There was no straight edge. I was a straight one. Suzette, my wife, who's also, straight, it's called straight edge now. No drugs, no alcohol ever. Her friends were all partiers. Party people are fun to hang out with. And, and it wasn't right for me. And I had friends who used to say, Dee, I would love to see you stoned. And then I have other friends who say, you know what? No, we're cool. Because I really don't need to be stoned. I don't need to be high to be weird or to be wacky or to get crazy. I never did. As a matter of fact, when I started out my stage performing and the way I dressed and the way I looked, when people found out I was straight, you want to talk about judging, people were really freaked out by that. Like they could see this big weird dude wearing the women's clothing. If he's high, okay, he's so wasted. But when I told them I was straight, I wasn't high or stoned, you should see people back away from you. They're like, whoa, what's wrong with you? How bizarre is that? If you're under the influence, it's like you have an excuse for fucked up behavior. But if you're, and I've said this many times, but if you're straight and sober and you're acting fucked up, you can get put away. You got no excuse. Take case in point. Guy walks into a bar, blowing out of his shorts, climbs up on the bar, pulls out his dick, and starts pissing. What do? They throw him out of the bar because he's drunk. May get roughed up, but he gets thrown out of the bar. If you're totally straight and you walked in the bar and did the same thing, they'd call the cops. Section 8. You're nuts. Dude walked in and pulled his dick out and pissed on the bar. He wasn't even high. So being high I would tell people at one point in my early career that I was stoned, that I was high, because it was easier for people to deal with my behavior. But then I got to a certain point where I said, you know what? I'm not pretending I'm fucking high because these people can't handle. You can't handle the truth because they can't handle a guy who's just comfortable with himself and can act nuts just because he wants to. That's what I do. That's what I do. I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Earpiece. Have you ever had your ears ring after a loud show? You know I have. Well, your sonic hangover may be a sign of permanent hearing loss. Seriously. The good news, noise-inducing hearing loss is 100% preventable. Sure, you can stop going to concert, but who wants to do that? Ha! Earpiece high-fidelity earplugs are precision engineered to lower the volume without distorting the music. You get full spectrum sound just at a safer, more comfortable level. Man, are these things a godsend, I tell you. Here's what's great about Earpiece. First of all, high-fidelity audio. The proprietary attenuation filter technology delivers clear, crisp sound. HD includes medium, high, and max protection filter sets, so you're ready for any environment. Then there's the comfort. You'll forget you're wearing an earpiece. The dual flange design gently seals the ear with no hard edges. They use safe, soft, premium silicone that is hypoallergenic and reusable. Very cool. Also, it's discreet. Earpiece is virtually invisible and also comes in your skin tone, so no one will know you're wearing hearing protection. The low-profile design basically disappears in your ear. Then there's value. They only use premium medical-grade silicone. Earpiece will not wear out or break. They include an ultra-premium milled aluminum case with 2 chambers, so you always have your spare plug. And then finally, there's trust. There are reasons bands like Metallica and festivals like Lollapalooza are using Earpiece. Why? Earpiece hearing protection is professional grade, and they guarantee it 100%. So if you're making music or going to live concerts, you need Earpiece. It's going to save your ears and improve your playing, listening experience. So go to earpiece.com, that's EARPEACE.com, and use promo code D15 for 15% off. Get it? D15, 15%. Oh, well. Earpiece can save your ears from permanent hearing loss. Once again, that's earpiece.com, promo code D15 for 15% off. So, the point being that as I was growing up and I saw these patterns, and I had some bad experience at 14, I drank for the first time and I got completely plowed on the ground, vomiting on myself, paralyzed, kind of drunk, you know. And when I said, God, if you ever let me walk again, that little sober voice, you know, like, please God, you know. And I swore off demon alcohol, but I realized early on that I've got an obsessive personality. So if I start drinking, if I start doing drugs, I knew it would be to the extreme, to excess, you know. So I needed to not go down that path. But I never shat on anybody else's party or right to party. So when I, you know, come across the Motley Crews of the world, they do their thing. I do my thing. And beyond that, I had this weird vision of, you know, of finding the one, and not Neo, the one being the woman, you know, I'm pointing, she's in the other room working out. And to find that girl and to like hang on to that and not screw that up. And yeah, you say, well, you know, you're missing out on a lot of fun in rock and roll. I have different kind of fun. And yeah, you know, life is a give and take. So you give up that party lifestyle, but you've got someone, you've got your brain cells, you've got your wits about you, you've got your, and not, by the way, not that I haven't completely fucked up and made terrible choices and terrible mistakes, totally sober. No excuse. One thing is when you're high, you got like a bad excuse. I've made mistakes and like, no excuse, sir, just an asshole, you know. So, but I chose a completely different path for myself, which eliminated a lot of that rock and roll fun, the sex and drugs and rock and roll part. I got the rock and roll part down. And you guys as a group tend to, and some people will be screaming, no, Dee, not us, not us. Well, you're older now. When I was younger, and, you know, I definitely had a certain percentage, a large percentage of young people who thought when they found out I was clean and sober and married and a kid and all that kind of stuff, thought I wasn't rock and roll. I mean, I've had people say, you know, that I wasn't a true rocker because I wasn't a waste. And again, I am not going to fucking be an asshole for you. If my performance isn't enough, then fuck it. Fuck you. I'm talking to you who, if you're saying, if you're not, and I learned that early on that people wanted lifestylers. A lot of the fans want people who, it's not just about on stage, the performance. They want you to have a crazy lifestyle that they can live vicariously through. And I couldn't provide that. I can't provide that. I won't provide that if that's what it takes. I always thought it was, that rock and roll was a Chinese menu, one from column A, one from column B. I thought that, you have it your way, pick your life as long as you rock. And then I was very disenchanted to find out in the 80s that there were people who didn't think I was credible because I wasn't wasted. So, and look, and that's one of the complaints about The Dirt, the movie, is that it's all lifestyle and no substance. And I mean, the filmmakers would probably say, the band's albums, the band's concert performances, those are the known. People, the behind the scenes, the struggles and the trauma and the partying. That's the stuff people don't get to see. That's why I want to show that in the movie. They didn't focus too much on the performances. And I kind of get that. But fans of Motley Crue have said that The Dirt, they felt it fell short because it sold the band short. Because Motley Crue fans, I've never seen Motley Crue live, by the way. Okay, so I don't know. But say they were a great live band. And, they were had great music and all this, and that wasn't truly recognized and shown and appreciated in the movie. And for Crue, I would say that their lifestyle definitely overpowered their music, even though their albums are very successful, a much bigger band than Twisted Sister. Let's just get that out there. Okay, their concerts sold out and all that stuff are very, very, very successful. But when people think of Motley Crue, I think they think the image and the lifestyle and more than the music comes to mind, even though they have some great music. And you people have seen them in concert, have said they're a great live band. So, so they may have been sold short that way. But I look at the Crue lifestyle, and it also seemed to me, remember, I'm older. And so I'm very much, born in 1955. That's the year rock and roll was born. So I saw rock and roll, and it had all that sex, drugs, rock and roll aspects in there. And, and that was actually, that was a thing. But when Crue arrived, best word I could think of, not that there's a bad word, I wanted a clever word, but when they arrived on the scene, it seemed to me like they had read the stories and were next level in this shit. I don't know if they were next level in because they wanted to be the next level, or if it was what they thought it must have been like. It was like their, we tend to romanticize things. We tend to read about things and we imagine. And it's always bigger, crazier, and better. And I always got the impression that Crue read the stories of the other bands and said, oh man, this is what it must have been like. And then they next leveled that stuff, So, and they did. They did. So, when I tweeted, I said, I chose a completely different path. Very happy with the path I chose. I'm happy, healthy, a great relationship with my wife, successful. And, musically not as successful as the Crue, but as a result, I went into other things like radio. So did Nicky. He did very well. and television and all these other things, and I've had a lot of success. So I've got no complaints at all about my choice, and I'm curious. I've never heard. I don't think somebody this is the conversation. Somebody on Twitter said, "I wonder if they regret things." And I'm sure there's some things, like it's very obvious that Vince regrets the drunk driving and killing Razzle, and I never hear him mention the other girls, but I'm sure that's regrettable, to him. And but you wonder, but didn't see a hell of a lot of change in the lifestyle, So that was a question. I don't know if they regret the lifestyle they chose. I don't get the impression they do. Do I regret the lifestyle I chose? No. That I missed out on the dirt? No, I'm cool. But, talking about their choices and the things, I said that, it's their prerogative. Kudos, Bobby Brown. But I had a problem with the drunken driving thing, and the people who were injured and endangering other people's lives with your actions like that. I have a problem with that. One thing that, the big conversation that's going on is the Me Too movement aspect of the dirt coming out at a time where, people are hypersensitive to that, celebrating women, recognizing women, empowering women. The dirt comes out, which puts women in a very objectified position. And, you see, women being, just as sex objects. And I heard that, Nicki's been doing interviews and stuff like that. And I saw some place where, he said that he's very pro Me Too, and he doesn't see what happened in the 80s as not going against Me Too. And he says, we were getting some, and the girls were getting some too. This was not, women weren't being forced to do these things. They were choosing to be a part of this. And I always felt that rock and roll, I didn't expect to see a lot of Me Too coming from rock and roll. We've seen a little bit with Gene. He's got a unique take on things. But for the most part, you haven't seen it coming out of the rock and roll world, because there was no need to force yourself upon women. There was no need to corner a woman or make her do something. There were women who wanted to party, and if men wanted to party, they could party. You know what I mean? So it wasn't, and that's Nicki's point. It wasn't, they weren't forcing themselves on women. The thing that, and I agree with them. This is a moment in time, and I don't like the PC thing. I don't like the fact that, we're so hypersensitive that someone can't make a movie like The Dirt, which is documenting something, a time that happened, the way it happened, as long as it's not making up lies. And, it isn't. So I think that, I don't have any problem with that. The one thing about what I saw, and I found it to be, and I found it to be bothersome, was how fucked up they were. This was, about the band being a family. Not, let me clarify. Take that account how fucked up, not that how high. To each other when it came to women. There was so many situations where they were screwing the other guy's girlfriend, or their record company guy's girlfriend, that deliberately going after their friends' old ladies. And you could say, well, they weren't serious or whatever. Well, I know I've had a personal experience with Vince, and I won't get into the gory details because there are no gory details. But let's just say that Vince came on to my wife, knowing she was at a cruise show. It was Ozzy and Crew. She was at a cruise show. My sister, well, now sister-in-law, was her best friend, worked for Elektra Records. I had just come back off the road. I'd seen Ozzy over in Europe. I didn't want to go to a show. I just wanted to hang out with my son. So Suzette went out with her best friend to the show, and they were backstage, of course. They worked for Elektra. She worked for Elektra Records, and unbeknownst to Vince, two of my brothers were there with my wife. They weren't right on top of her. One of them was dating Suzette's best friend, is now his wife of many years. So he was watching, and my other brother was there, and they were told, keep an eye on my interests. Okay, they didn't hang out on top of them. So Suzette was backstage, and the guys knew that Suzette was my wife, the mother of my son. And let's just say, without getting into any gory details, Vince did hit on my wife. And it didn't go, Suzette is not a groupie. One of the things I loved about her was she didn't own any stereo. She didn't care about rock and roll. I had to pursue her and chase her. She just was not impressed. So that stuff doesn't impress her. And, she's been around her whole life. And what I say to you is, my brothers bore witness to it. So they watched, saw what went down, and and they didn't even have to step in. She said, you don't fuck with a Brooklyn Italian chick, a mob princess of all things, and in fairness to Vince, he doesn't have to go that far. You know what I mean? If it isn't reciprocal, if she's not, he's making an advance, she's not coming back, he stepped away. But why, knowing it was my wife? This is going to be the next article online. But he knew it was my wife. He knew it was the mother of my child, and to even attempt. And then I watched The Dirt, and I see, Nikki banging Tommy's girlfriend in the back room, and Tommy, the one he thinks he's going to get engaged to, and Nikki, I think, banging their record company executive's girlfriend. And he found out years later that he had, there was that sense of that lack of the word propriety. What happened to man code? What happened to guy code? You know what I mean? So I just saw that this was their way. And if these are your brothers, and if these are your friends, and the whole thing was, we're a family. Did they use that they were drunk? Did they use that they were high as an excuse? It's not acceptable excuse to me. I don't judge people for drugs and alcohol, you know what I mean? But I do judge your actions, and I don't think they're excuses for actions. So if you're a shapeshifter, or if you start to become a totally different person, or you lose control of your moral compass because you're high, that's not acceptable to me. That's not acceptable. So did I ever, feel like I had a need to go kick Vince's ass? No. It's not like, he's not the first and not the last to make a pass at Dee Snider's wife. Okay? I know where my wife's at. I trust her. I know she'll say, you don't gotta babysit me. She'll say, but at the same time, do I feel like I need to go kick his ass because he made a pass at her? No, but watching the dirt and seeing that behavior as a thing, going, there's so many fish out there. Why? Is it to say that you did Dee Snider's wife? You know what I mean? Like if she went for it, or that you did Tommy's girlfriend, or you did, your record company executive's fiance. Is that like I don't know, a trophy of some kind? Does it make it more special? I don't see that. I don't do that. I wouldn't do that. Homie, don't play that. Matter of fact, when the night I met Suzette, she was with a guy. And the first thing I did was ask if she was with that guy. Because I saw her smiling at me and I get the wrong message. And she said, ew, no. She was friends, but they weren't like together, they weren't a date. So, but if she had said to me, if she was smart enough to have said to me, yes, I'm with him, I would have said, oh, okay, cool. Guy code. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. You know what I mean? So, anyway. So that's the dirt. And that's all I got to say about that. And I'm sure there's going to be, just anything to I just speak honestly, but and I don't mind when people write about things I say. I just please write what I say. Okay. There's one now. Let me see. Blabbermouth. They always are very accurate in what I say. Very fair. Never editorialize. No yellow journalism. They don't manipulate the truth. And I love Blabbermouth for that. There's another website. I can't remember the name, and I would say the name. You know me. I don't want to say the wrong name. But they print the facts, but whoever their editor is, he always sensationalizes the headline. He manipulates the headline. And that's a very popular thing to do, to bring in readers, probably because what I'm saying is actually reasonable and not very interesting. I tend to be fairly even in saying I'd run people over with a car. Okay, there's nothing really even about that. But other than that, but for the most part, I tend to be kind of logical and make sense. And I think I make sense with running people over the car, only because they deserve it. Your Honor, they deserved it. Oh, okay. You're free to go, Dee. Yeah, you weren't high. Okay, go. No jail time for you. No fine. Anyway, but there's some websites will manipulate the story in the written text, which is really fucked up. Others, you'll get the editor who writes the headline, and he'll write the sensational headline, which is misleading. And, just to entice the reader. So you're already like pissed off before you read what I said. So this week's show should show up on some website or other. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Listen, just one other thing I want to tell you. So you follow me on Twitter at Dee Snider, Instagram at Dee Snider, Dee Snider Facebook page. Please follow, check it out. Like I said, I don't monitor the Dee Snider Facebook page, but there's a lot of my people who do. They post a lot of interesting things. I should have an email address for you. I do not. I gave it last week. I'll try and get it next week because I would really like to start to get some emails from you guys. Please consider subscribing to the show if you enjoy my conversations, and that would be really good. And hey, I'm doing this thing called Cameo. It's kind of cool. If you don't know what it is, it's an app and where there's actors, sports figures, reality show people, musicians, and you pay them. You pay for the thing, but they will videotape a message. any message to whoever you want. And I've been doing it, and they're really kind of cool. So, I mean, I've done congratulations on anniversaries, birthdays, the obvious ones, retirements. I've done. I've done. Oh, I'm trying to think of a good one I did. I did one which is I was asked somebody. They wanted to ask somebody to be a groomsman, so they had me do it. People have done ones where people have quit their jobs, said "fuck you" to their bosses. Somebody had finished chemotherapy, and wanted to be congratulated them. Another person had gotten cancer, and they wanted me to speak to them, just cheer them up and tell them to keep fighting the fight. We're not going to take it, and all that stuff like that. So pretty much any message. Only messages I've turned down were people trying to get me to do advertisements for their companies for it's ridiculously small fee for these things. And they tried to actually get me to do like ads, like a radio ad or a TV ad for a couple $100. Like, I'm not doing a commercial. I don't even like your real estate agency. So I won't do that. But I've done some things like for record stores, things like, festivals, bands, So it's Cameo. If you've got a special event and you want a really special announcement, I'm your guy. So until next time, I want to talk. I'll still be talking. Communicate with me through social media. And next time I'll have the website, and there's actually a phone number you can call and leave a message. That would be kind of cool. And as I told you before, when I head back to the States, I plan on stockpiling some interviews for future shows. So you know what I'd really like to interview? Nikki. Smart guy. We've spoken. We've had interesting conversations because we both come from the same background of love. The music we love is very, very similar. Our influences are very, very similar, yet we've taken two very different paths. So we've got a lot in common, but we divert in a very essential way. So I'd love to talk to Nikki. Maybe I'll reach out to him. Okay, until next time. Bye. And the first thing I did was ask if she was with that guy. Because I saw her smiling at me, and I get the wrong message. And she said, "Ew, no." She was friends, but they weren't like together. They weren't a date. So, but if she had said to me, if she was smart enough to have said to me, "Yes, I'm with him," I would have said, "Oh, okay, cool, guy code." Just because you can doesn't mean you should. You know what I mean? So anyway, so that's the dirt, and that's all I got to say about that. And I'm sure there's going to be, just anything to. I just speak honestly, But and I don't mind when people write about things I say. I just please write what I say. Okay, there's one now. Let me see. Blabbermouth. They always are very accurate in what I say. Very fair, never editorialize, no yellow journalism. They don't manipulate the truth. And I love Blabbermouth for that. There's another website. I can't remember the name, and I would say the name, me. I don't want to say the wrong name. But they print the facts, but whoever their editor is, he always sensationalizes the headline. He manipulates the headline. And that's a very popular thing to do, to bring in readers, probably because what I'm saying is actually reasonable and not very interesting. I tend to be fairly even in saying I'd run people over with a car. Okay, there's nothing really even about that. But other than that, but for the most part, I tend to be kind of logical and make sense. And I think I make sense with running people over the car, only because they deserve it. Your Honor, they deserved it. Oh, okay. You're free to go, Dee. Yeah, you weren't high. Okay, go. No jail time for you. No fine. Anyway, but some websites will manipulate the story in the written text, which is really fucked up. Others, you'll get the editor who writes the headline, and he'll write the sensational headline, which is misleading. And, just to entice the reader. So you're already like pissed off before you read what I said. So this week's show should show up on some website or other. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Listen, just one other thing I want to tell you. So you follow me on Twitter at Dee Snider, Instagram at Dee Snider, Dee Snider Facebook page. Please follow, check it out. Like I said, I don't monitor the Dee Snider Facebook page, but there's a lot of my people who do. They post a lot of interesting things. I should have an email address for you. I do not. I gave it last week. I'll try and get it next week because I would really like to start to get some emails from you guys. Please consider subscribing to the show if you enjoy my conversations, and that would be really good. And hey, I'm doing this thing called Cameo. It's kind of cool. If you don't know what it is, it's an app and where there's actors, sports figures, reality show people, musicians, and you pay them. You pay for the thing, but they will videotape a message, any message, to whoever you want. And I've been doing it, and they're really kind of cool. So, I mean, I've done congratulations on anniversaries, birthdays, the obvious ones, retirements. I've done. I've done. Oh, I'm trying to think of a good one I did. I did one which is I was asked somebody. They wanted to ask somebody to be a groomsman, so they had me do it. People have done ones where people have quit their jobs, said "fuck you" to their bosses. Somebody had finished chemotherapy, another and wanted to be congratulate them. Another person had gotten cancer, and they wanted me to speak to them, just cheer them up and tell them to keep fighting the fight. We're not going to take it and all that stuff like that. So pretty much any message. Only messages I've turned down were people trying to get me to do advertisements for their companies for it's ridiculously small fee for these things. And they tried to actually get me to do like ads, like a radio ad or a TV ad for a couple $100. Like, I'm not doing a commercial. I don't even like your real estate agency. So I won't do that. But I've done some things like for record stores, things like, festivals, bands, So it's Cameo. If you've got a special event and you want a really special announcement, I'm your guy. So until next time, I want to talk. I'll still be talking. Communicate with me through social media, and next time I'll have the website, and there's actually a phone number you can call and leave a message. That would be kind of cool. And as I told you before, when I head back to the States, I plan on stockpiling some interviews for future shows. So you know what I'd really like to interview? Nikki. Smart guy. We've spoken. We've had interesting conversations because we both come from the same background of love. The music we love is very, very similar. Our influences are very, very similar. Yet we've taken two very different paths. So we've got a lot in common, but we divert in a very essential way. So I'd love to talk to Nikki. Maybe I'll reach out to him. Okay, until next time.